Tanse, I'm Chris Sanashkate. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. APTN News has learned Assembly of First Nations Regional Chief Joanna Bernard has resigned from the portfolio of Child and Families. In a letter obtained by APTN News, Bernard, who is the AFN's Regional Chief for New Brunswick, cites difficulties working with the National Children Chiefs Commission as her reason for resigning. She alleges the NCCC, now made up of 19 First Nation chiefs, has spread misinformation about the AFN, excluded the AFN from meetings, and withheld information. The two organizations are part of a group that is trying to negotiate a long-term agreement on First Nations child welfare reform. Bernard originally agreed to do an interview with APTN News, but later declined. We will have more on this story on tonight's newscast. The government of Nova Scotia has introduced some amendments to their Provincial Crown Lands Act they hope will prevent blocking, obstructing, or impeding access roads on Crown lands. The bill comes after a group of Mi'kmaq land protectors set up a camp on Hunters Mountain in Yunmagi, Mi'kmaq for Cape Breton. The camp has stopped logging companies from harvesting in the area. The land protectors say they are taking back stewardship of the mountain because logging companies are clear-cutting and destroying the ecosystem. The provincial government's proposed Protecting Nova Scotians Act will allow the removal of structures that obstruct access to Crown lands, harms provincial economic interests, and put public health and safety at risk. Punishment includes a $50,000 fine or 6 months in jail. Cheryl Maloney says Nova Scotia doesn't have jurisdiction on Hunters Mountain.
The Mi'kmaq people and Indigenous peoples have the right to hunt, fish, live as usual, build hunt and fish and pottery camps. And that is the law of the land, and we have that law, and there's no law in this country that can remove that. So I think we need to take a bigger step. It's more than just whether the province has the jurisdiction, which it doesn't. And it doesn't have the justification, the public interest.
On Wednesday, Indigenous Services Canada released the findings of a long-awaited forensic audit into the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations in Saskatchewan. The feds looked at 9 allegations. A total of $34.2 million in spending was deemed either ineligible or questionable. APTN's Rachel May reports.
Key findings included more than $23 million in questionable COVID-19 expenses, $367,000 in vehicle purchases, and $425,000 paid to a former employee. The audit also looked at 331 travel claims. It found that $265,000 out of $578,000 worth of claims could not be supported and may have contravened the FSIN's own travel policies. The report made 13 recommendations, including better documentation of purchases, Treasury Board review of severance packages, program codes for ISC funding, and new processes to calculate annual expenses for tracking and reporting purposes. APTN has reached out to the FSIN for comment. We have yet to hear back.
The Government of Canada initiated the forensic audit following questions raised by individual First Nations and community members. We have posted the entire audit to our website, including a news article by our web reporter, Leanne Sanders. You can see it at aptnnews.ca. We will continue to cover this story as it develops. Manitoba RCMP has deemed the death of a woman from a Northern First Nation as suspicious and are now asking the public's help in finding who may have been in contact with her before she was assaulted. On Friday, September 12th, Little Grand Rapids RCMP received a report of an assault that happened 2 weeks prior in Pungassi First Nation, located about 280 kilometers northeast of Winnipeg. The victim, 41-year-old Melissa Owens-Keeper, who is from the First Nation, was in critical condition and taken to a Winnipeg hospital. A week and a half later, on September 22nd, Owens-Keeper died in hospital. Her death is considered suspicious, and Manitoba RCMP Major Crimes is now leading the investigation. They're asking anyone to come forward who had previous contact with Owens-Keeper between August 30th and September 12th. to call the Little Grand Rapids RCMP detachment at 204-397-2249. The investigation continues this week. Saskatchewan RCMP Major Crimes says it has taken over a missing persons investigation involving a teenager from Brampton, Ontario, and was last seen living in a community in northern Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan RCMP says 16-year-old Josiah Weblong's disappearance from Pelican Narrows in northeastern Saskatchewan is now considered suspicious. Weblong was previously living in Brampton with his family and was last in contact with his family on May 16th from Pelican Narrows and stopped messaging after he planned to go to a friend's house. RCMP says when they found the home Weblong was staying in, they were told the teen evacuated due to the wildfires there. RCMP says they continue to follow any tips and leads to try and find where Weblong went or what happened to him. Weblong is 5'11" with a slim build, black shoulder-length curly hair styled with braids. Pelican Narrows is part of the Peter Ballantine Cree Nation, more than 400 kilometers northeast of Saskatoon. If anyone knows where Josiah Weblong is, you are asked to contact the RCMP. Alberta RCMP have concluded their investigation into the death of an amateur mixed martial arts fighter that happened last year in November. RCMP says the man's death was not suspicious. Last November, 33-year-old fighter Trokan Doshwa was injured during a charity fight in Enoch Cree Nation. He died in hospital just 2 days later. RCMP say the man's participation in the fight contributed to his death. Alberta is the only province in the country that doesn't have a provincial regulatory body for combative sports. Politicians in Winnipeg are speaking out after recent acts of vandalism at the constituency office windows of two First Nations cabinet ministers. But despite one affected minister saying the issue should concern everybody, Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew continues to stay silent. APTN Sav Jonza brings us this update.
Officials are saying very little following a number of attacks affecting two First Nation cabinet ministers in Winnipeg that have resulted in broken windows and fire damage. Firefighters have responded to 4 fires at MLA Bernadette Smith's constituency office since the beginning of August. Last weekend, MLA Nahani Fontaine's constituency office had its windows smashed in. Police are investigating but say they have nothing to share. At an unrelated event Tuesday, Fontaine addressed the issue.
The fact that Minister Smith's office has been vandalized as well as my own, I think should concern everybody.
She says no staff were harmed and they are currently working from home.
We can't say much. It is being investigated by Major Crimes. So, I have faith that Major Crimes is doing what they need to do to make sure that our offices are safe and that every constituency office is safe.
Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew has not responded to repeated requests by APTN News for comment about the vandalism. His office would not say if he will publicly address the situation. Leader of the opposition, Progressive Conservative Obi Khan, took to Facebook to denounce the actions he says create division. Khan says Manitobans have the right to demand better from their elected officials, but this is not the way. Smashing windows, harassment, or anything of that nature is never the solution. Both Smith and Fontaine are First Nations women. Both are ministers in Kinew's cabinet. In late August, Fontaine shared a video on social media addressing threats and online hate she's received while in office. One handwritten note stated Fontaine needs to be scalped, hogtied, and fired from job now. She captioned the video saying that for some politicians, quote, the violence is relentless. Essentially, we're told to just put up with the abuse. NDP Member of Parliament Leah Gazan says that doesn't cut it.
Certainly, I think that any situation of violence needs to be taken very seriously.
Gazan, who is also First Nation, says though it is a privilege to be a politician, it does come with personal safety risks. She had her own office windows smashed in Winnipeg last year, but says House of Commons gave her proper support.
I think it's time that members of parliament or members of legislative assemblies need to be provided with the supports they need to be safe. We need to ensure that any elected official is safe doing their job so that they can focus on doing that job.
Smith could not be reached for comment. We will continue to follow this story as it develops. Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Young up-and-coming Indigenous artists recently received some assistance at the National Music Centre in Alberta. That story when we come back. Welcome back. The National Music Centre hosted a number of emerging Indigenous artists last week to help them navigate a business side of the industry. It's the fourth year for the program. 8 performers enrolled to learn the ins and outs from their mentors and hopefully avoid some of the pitfalls. CTV's Kevin Fleming reports.
I'll take you with me now.
She started playing an instrument when she was 12 and wrote her first song soon after. Now Damasi Ellis is learning from mentors in the Indigenous music community to help further her career.
For me, learning about how to use social media a little bit better was a really big one. And as well, just looking at maybe placing more importance in my own practice on songwriting and collaborating with other people in that process.
Ellis is one of 8 emerging Indigenous artists who took part in the National Music Centre's incubator program with a Blackfoot name.
We wanted to honor the land that the NMC is on, so the Blackfoot word, and it means Osotakino is to recognize the voice of. And that's exactly what we do with the program.
David McLeod says the program's agenda comes from the students, and mentors share their experiences they've learned the hard way.
They call it music industry or music business for a reason. So people want to know the in and outs, and several other areas as well.
Shelby Sapier's stage name is Beats, and he's keen to learn everything he can about the industry through the program.
I know what it takes. You know, you have to be business orientated. You have to know the business side of things. And if you don't know your business, then your brand isn't, going to be successful.
Kaylee Cardinal is making a living off of playing her music and says it was a lot of hard work and took a long time to get to this point in her career.
I think what it is it's you create different streams of income. You become an entrepreneur. You figure out how to make it work. That's how I did it. So I think anybody can do it.
The spirit inside me longs for freedom.
Kevin Fleming, CTV News, Calgary.
A local Saskatchewan author has released her second book following a debut novel that was shortlisted for a Governor General's Literary Award. Her latest story follows a young boy obsessed with video games who suddenly finds himself immersed in the natural world. APTN's Rachel May has this report.
I thought, man, this would be a really cool thing for kids to read about and learn about. And that sort of was the start of the idea for this novel.
Author Christy Jackson's second novel, Touching Grass, is now available. The book follows Tristan, a 12-year-old Dene boy who would rather be playing video games than be outside. After getting into trouble at school, his mother sends him to a culture camp to connect with his roots. Inspired by Jackson's own time at a Dene culture camp, the story shows Tristan's journey of ups and downs, new friends, and life-changing experiences.
So he's very much out of his element when he's up dealing with, meat and blood and like all of the things that are part of culture camp. And so obviously he has a difficult time dealing with these things. And so, but as he goes, he starts to really sort of embrace it.
Jackson says the novel was inspired by her own visit to a Dene culture camp through her work. Although she is Cree, she recognized a need for Dene representation in literature and worked with communities to ensure the story was told respectfully and accurately. She says representation for all cultures is vital.
And it's so very important for kids to see themselves in stories. And so I'm really happy that I'm one of many authors that are contributing to having more Indigenous voices in the book place.
Her first book, Mortified, which followed Belinda, a shy student with a string of bad luck, was shortlisted for a Governor General's Award for Young People's Literature. She says that by the time Mortified hit the shelves in May 2024, she was already getting ready to start editing Touching Grass.
This time, I actually wrote the end just before Mortified came out. So it takes a little while between when you finish the first draft and then, do all the process of editing.
Touching Grass is now available wherever books are sold. Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
We now want to tell you about this week's third web poll question. Over on our website, we ask, what should the government do to crack down on hate crime? Your answers are more money towards programs, more policing, higher sentences, or unsure. Go to our website at aptnnews.ca to have your say. The questions are on the right-hand side of the homepage. We have more news after the break. Stay with us. Me, Gwetch, for staying with us. St. John 17, Halifax 18 and partly cloudy. Anujiwak 9 and rain, La Grande River 13. Quebec City 14, St. Jovite 16 and rain. Showers in Toronto at 19, Ottawa 15. Wawa 15 and smoky, Sudbury 17. Churchill 8, Puckatawagan 14 and sunny. Barons River 14, Brandon 14. 12 in Regina, Yorkton sunny and 9. Stony Rapids 5, Buffalo Narrows smoky and 6. Sunny in Fort McMurray at 15, Peace River 16. 24 in Lethbridge, Calgary 18. Tofino 13, Penticton 22. Smithers 10, Dees Lake 8 and showers there. Old Crow -1, Whitehorse 7. Fort Liard 16, Trout Lake 10 and sunny. Sax Harbor 0, Colville Lake 6. Chesterfield 5, Whale Cove 5 as well and sunny. And Arctic Bay -3, Resolute 0. In Winnipeg, the Manitoba Theatre Centre hosts the Pimoteowin Creators Circle and Festival of New Work each year. The Creators Circle creates and develops new plays by taking 6 artists each year with Governor General award-winning playwright Ian Ross to help lead their journey to discovering their storytelling skills. After meeting each week, the writers have their plays read at a free-to-attend New Work Festival in September in Winnipeg. We recently spoke with Kirby Fultz, one of the participants, who will tell us more about his play. Kirby, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule. Tell us a bit about Pimoteowin is and your experience of being part of this year's cohort.
Pimoteowin is a Indigenous Writers Circle that was created with MTC's Kelly Thornton, the artistic director, and Indigenous playwright Ian Ross. And what it is it's an environment that is supportive for Indigenous people to tell stories that are residing within them and to support each other in telling those stories in a really, really good way.
I know the play you're premiering on Friday is the first play you've ever written. Can you tell us about the playwriting process and what your story is about?
Well, the process was different from anything I've ever done before. I'm a storyteller in general, like I like to tell stories, but writing them down has never been a thing that I've ever done. So Pimoteowin just gave me the tools that I needed to put the words that I have, that I speak, down onto paper. And it's been life-changing. I wasn't the greatest student growing up, so I was kind of afraid of writing, and just the support that I got from my fellow writers and Ian and MTC in general really created something different inside of me. I felt myself grow as part of it. I'm old, so that's kind of a shock.
Yeah. And what's the story about?
My story is about an Indigenous family, specifically about a divorced mom and her children. The path that they take through the revealing of secrets that are held in the family, and secrets that have caused years of trauma for not just the children, but for the mom and her siblings too. And then the path of healing that comes from the sharing of those secrets.
Compelling stuff. Kirby, can you explain why should people come out and experience Pimoteowin's New York Festival?
That's a very good question. I think people should come out in general just to support the writers, just to come out and hear the stories that people have to tell. I think people should come out to walk across the bridge that MTC is building in reconciliation, and just to walk across that bridge and see that there's more out there than just what we're sort of fed. And it's free. Seriously, it's Manitoba.
Yeah, definitely get some people in the seats if it's free. And how has it felt watching everyone's stories come together throughout the year and now seeing them read in front of an audience?
You know, I have been part of their process as well as they're part of my process of writing. And it's really wonderful to see how we, in the support of each other and also the critiques from Ian as our mentor, just how a story can build and unfold in not even the way that we expected it to, but in an even more beautiful way. It's been pretty great.
Comes out very organically, eh?
Yeah, and there's no need for us to feel restrained. We could say what we want in however we want to say it.
Finally, Kirby, you talked about it a little bit there, but what are you most looking forward to about workshopping your play and seeing it performed?
Ooh, now that I'm finished writing the play, I say finished because I'm not really finished. I'm sure that I'll adapt and change as we go along, especially from the workshop. But I'm really looking forward to seeing how other people take the words that I've written and putting their own life into it, and how the director is going to see it and what they feel like the direction it needs to go in. I'm looking forward to that a great deal, to hear those voices.
And really briefly and quickly, for our viewers back in Winnipeg here, just tell us where everyone can go to see it.
They can go see it at the Tom Hendry Warehouse, right behind the concert hall. It's running every night this week, and then Saturday afternoon matinee.
Right on. Good to hear. Kirby Fultz, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. Thanks.
And that's your daytime newscast for this Thursday. Dennis Ward is back for your evening newscast in a few hours, including a brand new segment of Truth in Politics. Please join us then. And don't forget, we have more news stories on our website at aptnnews.ca. From our HQ in downtown Winnipeg, hi miigwech masicho. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next day.